everyone, Niklsun here, and welcome to Coming Soon Movie News with Niklsun. I'm your host, and on this show, every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, we'll be going over all of the day's movie news, as well as going over what it means for the production in general, such as casting decisions, trailer announcements, director announcements, things like that. So, without any further ado, let's get started with today's Hot Topics. So just yesterday, news came out that Universal was going to be Warner Brothers was going to be delaying The Conjuring 2 from its October 2015 release date to an unannounced date in 2016. Now, a lot of people the hairs on the back of their neck started to get up saying, uh-oh, this doesn't look good. What's the case going to be? When I first read that news, the first thought in my head came out that, what if they pushed it back so that James Wan could return to direct? Because he had, originally the filming schedule for Fast and Furious 7, the film was supposed to come out in June of this year, June of 2014. And obviously with the unfortunate passing of Paul Walker, they had to delay filming for about 6 months, refigure out the script, get everything all back on track. They came up with the new release date in 2015, in April, and then, the extensive post-production process, which was even more was tacked on because they had to do the facial replacement for all the stand-ins playing Paul Walker's character. So it made sense when that came out. I said, well, that Fast and Furious 7 is coming out in April of 2015. That does not give him enough time to do The Conjuring 2 and have it still be released in October of 2015. If they're delaying it, that must mean that he's coming back. They're trying to get him to come back. They're trying to work out a deal. Well, sure enough, later on last night, the news came out. James Wan is in fact returning to direct The Conjuring 2. And that to me signals that this film is actually going to be hopefully it's going to be a fairly decent film. I really enjoyed The Conjuring. I found that The Conjuring was one of those pleasant surprises. I find that anytime James Wan steps behind the camera when it comes to when it comes to horror, thriller, suspense, all that kind of stuff, he brings a different level to it than most other directors do. And I don't know what it is about him, his sensibilities, his timing, his mood perception, all that kind of stuff. All that comes to play when dealing with the atmosphere that he creates, with the chilling tension. A lot of people kind of make fun of making horror films because all you got to do is, film a door that's shutting. But, he can even have situations like that, like he did in The Conjuring, yet it elicits a different sensation out of most people. And I say most people because not everybody liked it. There were a lot of people who did, but not everybody did. And I'm generally not a horror fan. I don't get behind horror films the same way that a lot of other people do. I can still appreciate the good ones, such as in case The Conjuring, because that movie you had characters that you cared about. I think it was one of the first horror movies in a while that nobody died. There's just a lot to really like about it and a lot to build off of that, especially with the case of the Warrens. Just to see where they could go, like the true life stories that they could bring out from these guys again, and then obviously over sensationalize the storylines. But it looks as though we're getting The Conjuring 2 directed by James Wan. That movie will be coming out an unannounced date in 2016. I'm sure that they'll firm up a release date. I don't know if they're going to push it all the way back to October. They may even do another summer release because that's what happened with the first Conjuring, and it worked out really well. It stood apart from all the other films. And this past summer, we only had, there was Deliver Us from Evil, which I thought was okay. It wasn't great, but it was okay. And outside of that, I haven't seen a good horror film yet. Annabelle wasn't anything to sneeze at. And we got Ouija coming out, and I've heard mixed things about that. I haven't been excited about Ouija since it was announced. Actually, when it was originally announced, Ouija sounded really cool because it was going to be like a National Treasure type action-adventure, globe-trotting adventure film. And then they made it down to a small-scale horror film. So initially I was like, yeah, a movie, like a big action adventure film that's spreading across the world sounds really cool. But then Ouija, you're like, I don't know how that could work. But they could try to make it really fun. And then they just brought it back down to basically a Paranormal Activity, but not shot through found footage. So we do know that Patrick Wilson and Vera Farmiga are going to be returning as the Warrens. I doubt we're going to see Ron Livingston back. I doubt we're going to see... I'm even forgetting her name. The Ron Livingston's character's wife in The Conjuring. I'm forgetting her name. But one additional nugget that came out with this report, and this is pure speculation. This is just because of the age that we live in now and the company that he's dealing with when it comes to this property. So The Conjuring is a Warner Brothers property. So he's going back to Warner Brothers to direct the sequel. Warner Brothers also just happens to have their entire DC slate coming out. And so everybody's trying to say, well, this guy could direct this movie. This guy could direct this movie. This guy could direct this movie. Well, New Line Cinema, which is Warner Brothers' sub-company, is going to be the company that's going to be making The Conjuring 2. New Line Cinema also, out of at least the ones that we know of right now, none of the other ones have been confirmed by this, but Shazam is the only DC film that's coming out that we know of that's being handled by New Line. And a lot of people are speculating right now that part of this deal for him coming back to direct Conjuring 2 could in fact be him directing a future DC movie, likely Shazam, out of all the options, just because of the information we've been given. Now, I personally don't know if that is going to be the case. I think it would be really cool. I mean, we're going to have to wait until next year to see what he does with Fast and Furious 7, to see how he can handle a genre outside of the horror genre, the horror suspense thriller genre. So if he can knock it out of the park with Fast and Furious 7, then absolutely I'm on board. The downside, or not the downside, but the problem with that is Universal has options on him to direct future Fast and Furious installments. Now, they've let him go and direct The Conjuring 2 because A, it's not going to be a very large project, so he's not going to be tied into that for very long. B, I think that they're going to have to try to reevaluate what type of direction they want to take this franchise in to continue on after Fast and Furious 7. Guaranteed, like, this movie's going to make so much money. This movie's going to have Dark Knight appeal, because, and I don't mean it's going to be that quality. Don't think that that's what I'm saying. What I'm saying is it's going to have the same effect that the death of Heath Ledger had on the box office of The Dark Knight. Everybody out there, I think, can agree, as great of a movie as it was, it would not have had the commercial success that it had if it wasn't for the passing of Heath Ledger. I think everybody out there can just agree on that. It would have still made a lot of money. Don't get me wrong. It was a fantastic movie, and it was a great successor to Batman Begins. But let's not just throw facts against or out the window. There's a reason that movie made so much money, and it was because everybody wanted to go out and see his final completed role. He did have another role come out after that, but it was just his final completed role. And so I think the same thing's going to happen with Fast and Furious 7, leading to future sequels, but I think Universal's going to take a step back for a second and see where exactly they want to take it, which is why James Wan is able to go out and do The Conjuring 2. But I think around the time that The Conjuring 2 is going to come out, they're going to have their game plan. They're going to know where they want to take it, and if they want James Wan back, he's contracted to come back, which could put a little bit of an issue in him coming on to Shazam or another DC property. But I mean, again, it's all speculation. It's all conjecture right now. We don't have any concrete information outside of the fact that James Wan is returning to direct The Conjuring 2, that it will be released sometime in 2016, and Patrick Wilson and Vera Farmiga will be returning to the cast. Outside of that, we don't have any other information. But when we do get information about this property, I will definitely update you guys on here. When this news came out, it actually kind of surprised me because of how recently this film came out. But it looks as though the complete media rights to John Carter of Mars, whether it be film, television, or anything of that sort, have completely reverted away from Disney and gone back to Edgar Rice Burroughs Incorporated, the writer's company who wrote the original treatments and the original stories of John Carter of Mars, Gods of Mars, all the Barsoom novels. Now, Disney kind of they misfired in a sense with the 2012 film starring Taylor Kitsch. And by I say misfired in a way, what I mean by that is I really enjoyed that film. I was very surprised at how good it was. At least, again, to me. This is how I felt. I'm not speaking on behalf of everybody. I was really surprised at how much charisma he actually brought out of the character. Because up until that point, I didn't really like Taylor Kitsch. I mean, I'd seen him on Friday Night Lights a few episodes. I never really watched the show, but I decided to check it out. And, I mean, yeah, he was a talented actor. But, I mean, a lot of the times what I'm noticing with him, he's picking roles to try to further his career, but he's not looking at the actual quality of the roles. I mean, Battleship is probably the perfect example of that. He's now turning that around with turns in, like, Lone Survivor and other projects that he has coming out, but I mean, just looking at what Battleship did, and the 1-2 punch of Battleship and John Carter being box office failures, I mean, that really did hinder his progress as an actor for a little bit. But I really did appreciate what they did with the film. I thought the world building was absolutely incredible. I mean, outside of the fact that it looked like it was shot in New Mexico, or in Australia. I mean, you could pick either one of those. They should have just done something with the sky, made it a little bit more red instead of just bright blue. It just looked like it was shot on Earth. That was the main problem that I had with it. But outside of that, it was fun. I mean, I really got behind the characters. I really felt that outside of her dialogue, I'm forgetting Lynn Collins' character's name. I'm forgetting her character, the Princess of Mars. With the exception of her dialogue, I felt that she was a very strong character. She, like, especially the sequence where he grabs the sword away from her, and then she grabs it back and starts fighting, and he goes, maybe I should stand behind you. Like, I really appreciated the way that they handled the characters. I really liked Willem Dafoe as Tars Tarkas. Even though you couldn't see him, he was all just in motion capture, and he was that big 8-foot tall green alien. He came across as kind of a little bit jokey, but also very serious, very endearing. There were just a lot of elements about this project that I really did like. It just didn't hit with a lot of audiences, and a large problem, or a large reason for that, is the marketing. The marketing of that movie, they didn't know what to do with it. Originally, it was called John Carter of Mars, or Edgar Rice Burroughs, John Carter of Mars, The Princess of Mars. Then they got rid of Princess of Mars because they felt, okay, well, teenage boys are not going to want to go and see a movie with the word princess in it. At least that was their thought. So then they just dropped it down to John Carter of Mars, which is an appropriate title. I mean, you can see that just right behind me here. The JCM, that was their original logo, and it was John Carter of Mars. And they then did another study, and they found that any movie with Mars in the title doesn't hit well with audiences, particularly younger girls. They didn't want to go and see a movie on Mars because they felt it was going to be boring. So then the studio said, okay, well, we're going to drop that, and we're just going to call it John Carter. And then we're going to advertise it. But all the advertisements just focused on the giant white ape fight. People had no idea what the movie was about. They had no idea what they were getting involved in. And a movie called John Carter, I mean, you could draw parallels between John Carter and Jack Reacher. I mean, just thinking of those titles, you would think that, well, both of those must be kind of similar movies. And they couldn't be further from themselves. I mean, it was just mishandled to the nth degree. And I even remember watching all the trailers, and I thought, this looks cool, but I have no idea what this movie's about. And then I watched it, and I went, wow, you know what? I'm really intrigued by this. I really loved his little dog alien pet thing that he had. I thought that thing was just really funny and cute. Well, it looks as though we're getting a reboot, though. The rights reverted back to Edgar Rice Burroughs Incorporated after the just abysmal box office performance of John Carter. I mean, sorry, that's a misnomer. It wasn't abysmal in the sense that it made a lot of money. It made over $200 million, I believe. But the production budget on the movie alone, I believe, was close to $200 million, let alone the P&A advertising. I mean, I believe it had Super Bowl ads. It had several theatrical trailers. It had several TV spots. The marketing budget on that movie alone must have been upwards of 60 to 70, maybe even $80 million. So right there, let's just say their production budget was $200 million. P&A was $80 million. So right there is a $280 million overall budget. Then you got to take into account all the producers' back-end deals, whether they get 1%, 2%, 5%, anything of that sort. There weren't any high-quality actors. Sorry, not high-quality. That's a wrong phrase. A-list 10, 20, 30 million dollar a picture actors involved in the picture, which means that they did not have to give out any percentage back end deals to any of the actors. So it would have only been the producers, the director, maybe even the writers, and a couple of other key executives involved in the film. So right there, let's just say after everything, it was 7% that was taken out for producers back end. So that would be about another, let's bring that total up to about $310 million. Well, then you need to add another 30% of what that total was so another $90 million. So let's say we're at $400 million now. That's what they needed to make in order to break even on the project. And I think they bottomed out in total box office at around $250 to $260 million. So Disney right there took a bath in almost, if not $100 million, then at close to $100 million that they lost on that project. I don't know if it was that the rights reverted back, because I've never seen a contract be in a position where it's 2 years. 2 years after the fact that we're not going to have another movie come out. Actually, was it 2011? Might have been 3 years now. But still, that's really early. Like, that's very quick. Most properties have 5 to 10 years. If the project's not under development, then the rights revert back. So this is just very surprising. But what they're doing right now is they are going to be looking at another studio or another financer or another backer to look into investing into this property so they can continue on this storyline. Now, it's almost certainly going to be a reboot if they do this. And the main reason I say that is because even though Disney now doesn't have the rights to John Carter of Mars, they own the footage that was used in the previous version. So I don't see them, continuing on that storyline. I also don't see Andrew Stanton coming back because he's really busy right now with Finding Dory, which is the sequel to Finding Nemo, because that's going to be coming out in a couple of years. But they're right now, they're trying to launch Edgar Rice Burroughs storylines everywhere. Warner Brothers right now is doing the new Tarzan movie with Alexander Skarsgård and Margot Robbie, which is going to be coming out next year. It's directed by David Yates, who directed the last 4 Harry Potter movies. So this is definitely a property that they want to get off the ground. They want people to be invested in this world, and I really do think they succeeded in that with the first one. It's just not enough people saw it because of the mishandling of the marketing. But I'm really intrigued with this property. I really do want to see more from this world. I hope that they're able to get a financier to back this movie. I don't think it's going to be as big and as extravagant as we had with the Disney version. Disney has a tendency to just throw as much money as they can at a property, and sometimes it doesn't work out. John Carter and Lone Ranger are 2 examples that come to mind. But in terms of who I would like to see, and I want to get your guys' opinion on this as well, who I would like to see get involved in this property, I really do think that out of all the production studios out there, I think Universal Studios has the best track record to deal with a movie like this. Because this is a very imaginative world. It's more so about the characters exploring this universe and this world with the story unfolding like that. And Universal has really great success with that, with franchises like Jurassic Park, and Jaws, and other properties like this, where the environment that they're in is what really does propel the story. And I really do feel that Universal could do this film justice. I think that they have I don't want to say a lack of franchises, but they don't have very many. They're trying to come out with a new Jurassic Park movie next year with Jurassic World. They also have the Fast and the Furious franchise, and they have their Despicable Me franchise. Outside of that, they don't really have a reoccurring franchise yet. So I can really see them coming on board with this. But more importantly, out of all the directors out there, the one that really struck a chord with me, and I don't even know why, outside of maybe just what he did with Thor, but it's Kenneth Branagh. I really do think that Kenneth Branagh could really bring something unique to this property. Whether it be a visual style, because I love the Dutch angles that he did in that movie, where almost every shot was just kind of off kilter. So, I really do think that he can bring a lot to this world. I wasn't over the moon about Jack Ryan, but there wasn't really a lot to be artistically creative with that storyline. That was more of a streamlined spy thriller type movie. So I could see this being a really cool idea, really cool vision if somebody got involved in the project. But as it stands right now, all this announcement was just that we're going to be hopefully getting some new movies as long as they can get a financial backer behind them. But I really do see the potential. I really do see where this story could go. And I see this potentially being a very successful franchise as long as they handle it properly. Just don't outsource to another company. That's one of the main problems with John Carter. They outsourced to the wrong company. I think it was the same company that did the advertising for Edge of Tomorrow, but I'm getting off on a tangent right now. But yeah, I'm excited for this. I really do hope that we get some more tangible information in the near future. And if we do, I will definitely update you guys on here. And the last topic that we have to talk about today is just going to be a little quick update, but some of the actors involved in the upcoming DC slate of movies have actually come out. Now that the official announcement's out there, they've been able to come out and actually talk about not only their reactions to the announcement, but their reactions to being cast as these heroes and in this world. So both Jason Momoa, who will be playing Aquaman, and Ray Fisher, who will be playing Cyborg, both came out and were talking about their upcoming projects. So Jason Momoa, first off, he came out and he said he's so happy to be able to start talking about this because he's had to keep it tight-lipped for so long. He would not confirm an appearance in Batman v Superman, but he did confirm that his first appearance will be in Justice League, and then that'll be followed by the Aquaman film, which he believes will be likely an origin story. They're going to try to tell the origin story of Aquaman. I believe that. I think that that's definitely a possibility. I think people really do need to understand where this character comes from, because he is the most laughed at character, I think, in comic books. And for them to really take this new approach to this character, I do think they need to do an origin story. They need to do a Man of Steel type origin story to completely turn the tide on how people view this character, because that's what Man of Steel did, at least for me. It was another origin story, and it was a necessary origin story because they needed to set up this version of Superman. They needed to set up a world where this guy is the one who exists. It's not a continuation of the Christopher Reeve, Brandon Routh Superman. It's not going to be just a new Superman where we have to exist with these laws. No, they gave us all this information. They let us know what type of world he comes from, what type of world he has to deal with on Earth, and I think they're going to do the same thing with Aquaman. He believes that the film will likely shoot in either late 2016 or 2017. I'm thinking more 2017 because in 2016 he's going to be filming most likely Justice League. So, even though, again, he didn't confirm that he's in Batman v Superman, I think we can all say that he is, mainly because of what Ray Fisher was talking about. So one of the interesting things about Ray Fisher is he didn't know that he was getting a Cyborg movie until about 3 or 4 hours before the Warner Brothers conference call, or their shareholders meeting. He got the announcement, like, told that, yeah, you're going to be getting a standalone movie. And that was just surprising to him. He just wanted to be involved in this world. That's why Batman v Superman, as far as I know, is going to be his first feature film credit. Like, he hasn't been in a film before. He's a Broadway actor, so he's a great talent. Don't get me wrong about that. But he came out, and I think he made a little bit of a slip of the tongue, because he said he's already filmed his part in Batman v Superman, which, I mean, absolutely, you can go out and say that if you want. He doesn't have a big role. But he did confirm that he got to meet other superheroes such as Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman, and Aquaman. So right there, I'm pretty sure that he just let the cat out of the bag. Aquaman is officially in Batman v Superman, although it's not official because the studio has not come out and said it. But one of the actors involved with the film did say that he was on set with Aquaman. I think we can all take away from that Aquaman is going to be in the movie. I don't think a lot of people really did doubt that he wasn't going to be in the film. This is essentially a Justice League light. So, I mean, I'm just really excited we're finally getting some tangible information about these projects, especially from these actors that are involved. I am over the moon excited for Jason Momoa. I've been championing this guy for years, ever since I saw him on Stargate Atlantis. Ever since then, I've been championing him. Never saw him on Baywatch, but I've always felt that he has a presence, even though his characters that he most of the time plays are very brooding. They're quiet, they're silent, but they're intense. They're just massive. Like, he played Ronan on Stargate. He played Khal Drogo on Game of Thrones. All guys very silent, very quiet, didn't say a lot, but damn, did you not feel their presence when they were on screen. And I've really been championing him to get a lead role. And he was offered the role of Drax the Destroyer in Guardians of the Galaxy, and he turned it down because he didn't want to be typecast as that type of a character, as the silent henchman, brooding type guy. He didn't want to be pigeonholed as that. And I can't blame him for that. Getting into a role like Aquaman, that's really going to let him to stretch his wings or stretch his fins, as I should say. That's a bad pun. I'm sorry. But yeah, I'm really excited for this. I'm excited to see what Ray Fisher is able to bring to the table. I mean, a Broadway actor being in a film like this, playing a role like Cyborg. I mean, yeah, I'm getting really intrigued by this. This casting is really starting to ramp up. I'm just curious as to when they're going to introduce Ezra Miller as the Flash. I think they're going to wait until Justice League before they actually introduce him. But we may hear little rumblings about him before that, like Barry Allen or Wally West or whoever they're going to introduce as the Flash. We still don't know exactly which character they're going to go by. But when we do get more information about this, this is going to be a never-ending update, because these movies are already announced until the end of 2020, which is 6 years away. Like, that's so far away. But still, they got a lot of time on their hands to get all these characters right. They got a lot of time to fix little things that need to be fixed. So we got more than enough time. We don't have to really worry about this unless they go out and cast, what would be a bad one? Like, they cast Kristen Stewart as Aphrodite or something like that. That would be just, I think they'd be picketers at Warner Brothers a lot, just like saying, get her out of here, get her out of here. But that's a nightmare scenario. But yeah, if we get more information about this topic, I will definitely be updating you guys on here. And just before we go, I just wanted to give a little bit of an update. It was announced last night on Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. that the first trailer for Avengers Age of Ultron will be premiering next week during Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. on Tuesday at 9 p.m. So during that hour, we're going to see the first trailer for Avengers Age of Ultron, and it will appear online sometime shortly after that. And then it will be in theaters with Interstellar starting on November 6th of next week. Or not next week, the week after, I should say. But yeah, we're getting our first official trailer confirmed for next week. So, yes, definitely going to be talking about that. I will probably even do a special episode Tuesday night just to talk about that, but I may wait till Wednesday's episode. I won't know until I actually see the trailer about how excited I'll get, how much footage they actually show us, but we're not going to know until we get there. But when we do get there, when we do get information about this, I will definitely update you guys on here. Well, that'll about do it for us here on Coming Soon Movie News with Niklsun. Thank you so much for watching. You guys have been a great audience. You can go ahead and click the subscribe button there. Go ahead and get updates whenever we post a new video. You can also follow me on Twitter at Niklsun, Niklsun, for all of your movie updates. And you can also like us on our Facebook page at facebook.com/movie news with Niklsun. And until next time, you guys enjoy the rest of your day. Take care.